There are moments in history when the world seems to hold its breath, when power, fear, technology, and human instinct collide in a single second. For the United States, the 20th century was filled with those moments. From the beaches of Normandy to the skies over the Pacific, from the factories that roared with production to the soldiers who crossed oceans, America became more than a country. It became the nation others watched, measured, challenged, feared, and often depended on. The American military machine was not just powerful, it was decisive. It shaped wars, it changed outcomes. It reminded allies and enemies alike that when the United States enters the arena, the entire balance of the world shifts. And yet, there came a night when even that immense power stood only inches away from total destruction. A night when the fate of the United States, the Soviet Union, Europe, and the entire planet hinged. Not on strategy, not on presidents, not on aircraft carriers or missile silos, but on the judgment of one unknown man sitting in a dark bunker on the other side of the world. A man the United States had never heard of. A man who, without knowing it, would save millions of American lives. It was September 26, 1983. The Cold War was at its peak. The tension between Washington and Moscow was electric and dangerous. President Ronald Reagan spoke with clarity and strength, calling the Soviet Union what he believed it truly was, an evil empire. American technology was advancing. American defense systems were modernizing. American superiority in the sky, on the seas, and across global bases was undeniable. But power like that always comes with a shadow. The more advanced the weapons become, the smaller the margin of error. One misreading, one wrong interpretation, one button pushed at the wrong time, and the greatest military force in human history could vanish in a cloud of fire. Deep inside the Soviet Union, in a secret underground early warning center known as Serpukhov 15, officers watched American missile activity around the clock. Their job was simple and terrifying. If the United States launched nuclear weapons, they were to report immediately, and the Soviet response would be automatic. Minutes. That was all it would take for the world to end. Sitting at the control desk that night was Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov. He was not a politician. He was not a war hero. He was a quiet officer, trained to trust the system and follow the rules. The room hummed with machines. Screens glowed. Cigarette smoke drifted in the air. Then, without warning, the alarm exploded. Sirens screamed. Lights flashed crimson. The command system displayed one horrifying message: American missile launch detected. According to the computers, a US intercontinental ballistic missile was already on its way toward the Soviet Union. Protocol demanded only one thing: confirm the detection and report it as an attack. If Petrov did that, Soviet missiles would launch in retaliation. Within minutes, American cities would be burning, and American cities would answer back. The world would disappear. But before he could react, the system triggered again. A second missile, then a third, then a fourth, then a fifth. The machine was screaming the same conclusion. The United States had begun nuclear war. Officers around Petrov stared at him, frozen, waiting. The clock was ticking. His training said, report. His orders said, trust the system. But something inside him refused to accept it. He thought like a soldier, like an analyst, like a human being. If the United States truly wanted to launch World War III, if it wanted to destroy the Soviet Union in a single blow, why would it send only 5 missiles? American doctrine had always emphasized overwhelming strike power. America did not do things halfway. America did not gamble on small attacks. If war came, it would come like a storm. Petrov compared data again. He saw that Soviet radar, the real ground-based confirmation, still reported nothing. Only the satellite system, new and unproven, was detecting launches. He made a decision that violated procedure and possibly risked his life. He declared it a false alarm. Then he waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. America remained silent. No explosions, no impacts, no proof. And finally the truth emerged. There had been no American attack. The satellite system had mistaken sunlight reflecting off high clouds for missile launches. The world had come inches away from total destruction because of a glitch. The Soviet government did not reward Petrov. They did not celebrate him. They classified the incident. They criticized his judgment. They quietly moved him aside. Meanwhile, life in the United States continued normally. Children went to school, soldiers trained, factories operated. Nobody knew that one man, in a hidden bunker thousands of miles away, had prevented the annihilation of American cities, American families, American history. Years later, when documents finally became public, the United States learned what had truly happened. American analysts reviewed intelligence files and realized how close the world had come. Pentagon planners, nuclear policy experts, and military historians began studying the case. They did not see Petrov as an enemy. They saw him as proof that even in the most advanced age of weaponry, human judgment still matters. American strategy adapted. Redundant systems were reinforced. Multiple confirmation methods became doctrine. The guiding principle hardened. The United States would never rely on a single signal to decide the fate of the world. Stanislav Petrov spent the rest of his life quietly. When he was finally recognized in the West, including honors presented in the United States, he shrugged at the idea of being called the man who saved the world. He insisted he had simply done his job. But history tells us something different. If he had trusted the computer, if he had followed the checklist, if he had chosen rules over instincts, the Soviet Union would have launched, the United States would have retaliated, and the powerful, proud nation that reshaped the 20th century might have vanished in minutes in the end. This story reminds us not only of danger, but of strength, American strength and global responsibility. The United States emerged from the Cold War not only as a superpower, but as a survivor. It is a nation that stood on the edge of destruction and remained. And sometimes, the difference between life and death, between silence and a burning sky, does not lie in missiles, in presidents, or in grand speeches, but in one human decision made in the shadows. This is Black Archive history, telling the truth preserved in forgotten files, showing how America walked through the fire of history and came out standing.